Batavia down is more, lots more.
Quiet in the court. We are gathered here for What's Trainwreck Watching for the season finale recap of House of the Dragon Season 2, brought to you by Batavia Downs. And in the court, we're joining us, we have Lord Micah the Warm, we have Lord Dunny the Brave, and we have Lord Parthy the Wise. I'll cue it up for you guys. How are you feeling with this House of the Dragon Season 2 finale in the books?
I'm going to be on the opposite side of everybody and the internet and everything. I still enjoyed last night's episode. I know wasn't all of the climax that we wanted it to there. There was still some great stuff there. And if that didn't sell you for a season 3, I don't know what you're waiting for. All these people are going to say, oh, I'm out. Oh, this, oh, that. And they're going to be locked in season 3, episode 2 when they hear how good episode 1 was. No doubt in my mind. So I know we'll get into probably there's issues. There's things that happened this season that we're going to get into. Overall, I still thought it was a good episode with a lot of politics and play and everything else. And I enjoyed the season, maybe not as much as the first, but still enjoyed it. Oh, Dunny got
You're
muted,
muted, Dunny.
I went mute monster.
Mute dragon.
Mute dragon, yes. No, I definitely won't be boycotting next season. Like, I don't think it was that bad by any means. I think it was a good episode of television. I think it was pretty poorly done for a season finale. I will say that.
I mean, if you look at it as a season finale, I can see why you're disappointed. But as we later on learn from some inside information, some leaks that happened about what had gone down behind the scenes, you realize, oh, it's actually an episode 8, and we should treat it as such. If you look at it like from Jake's perspective as an episode unto itself and not a season finale, then it's not quite as disappointing. But obviously, where there should have been 10 episodes, really, and we'll get into that later. I think it was curious that there were only 8 episodes when we just saw the slate of what was to come, and maybe we should have had an inkling that this would be how it would play out. But yeah, the idea that we were going to see like either the beginning or the whole of a great battle that was going to happen, obviously that's all to come. There's like at least 2 or 3 battles that I can see to come in season 3, but now we're going to have to wait a couple more years for that to happen. So in that, it is a little disappointing, but you have to take this into a little bit of perspective, and we'll get into all that.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like, we just saw SummerSlam, which was really good. Everyone liked it, but it was also predictable. This feels like it was predictable, but it wasn't executed the right way. It wasn't, they didn't stick the landing with what they really wanted to do, in my opinion. And it starts with, as early as the first episode. I mean, blood and cheese. Why do we make the change from the script, which was so effective, that really had no other effect on the entire storyline from what I've seen? There's no, why we did this, why we did that. We'll see, but, it begins with that. And then just, again, if you want to start poking holes in things, you could do a trillion with any TV show, just to be true. The one thing I want to say is we did 7 episodes of this before tonight. We never once even talked about the possibility that Daemon could take his own army and go do his own thing. So the idea that was like the big storyline of the season, or that was like the big, like, will he, won't he, that ended up just being like Sansa Stark versus Arya in season 7 or whatever. It ended up basically being a whole bunch of nothing. So I get that in their, like, so that's where I just think they're stupid. Because, and I say that with respect, but like to think that scene where Daemon like kind of announces the army is hers was going to be some kind of like grand, like, let's go, like, see the grand, like, let's go scene was when she stared at the camera at the end of last season. That was like, let's go. So my grand arcing point, and we'll get back to it as we talk about the leaks and everything like that, where I am on House of the Dragon after this season and this finale is exactly where I was on Game of Thrones coming into House of the Dragon. I'm coming off a season that kind of made me question, a little bit of the Westeros, a little bit of the storytelling, and a little bit of the writers. Do I know the content is good at the end of the day? Of course. I know it's a cut above, of course. But is it that Game of Thrones level storytelling like season 1 was? I think there were parts this season, but ultimately not. I think the rest fell flat. Well, with that said, let's share what we got here. So this is from a Reddit post. Like everything important that comes. By the way, Batavia Downs. You don't have to go on Reddit to know that it's the greatest spot to go entertainment destination in Western New York. Batavia Downs. Something always going on every night of the week. But so this is just strictly, this isn't like a leak. Nobody had like a source or anything. This is strictly just pulling together all the news articles on what happened with season 2, right? So you see, the first is that, the executive producer declines to comment on reduced season 2, 10 to 8 episodes. Wasn't really our choice. The scripts were done by Jan 2023. The switch to 8 episodes was reported in March 2023. So that's the first thing that tells you that this was mapped out for 10 episodes and an appointed date. Now, again, can things be moved along the way? Of course, things can be shuffled. I mean, at this point, you're talking about, that's 18 months ago, essentially, from when they wanted to roll with season 2. It would be very difficult to change that many things with pieces if you had 10 episodes mapped out versus 8 at that point, for sure. So again, the writers and everything have my, regard, but deadline source pointed a corporate's leadership on cost cutting. Now, this isn't news to anybody who's in like the entertainment sphere, that all of these, basically every streaming service, especially WBD, is looking to cut costs. Zaslav basically got rid of the Batgirl movie, which was already in the can, quote unquote, as they speak. It was already shot and everything, but they thought it might make more economic sense to do that. So what you're seeing here is, and this is my first real issue. I mean, what are we doing cutting House of the Dragon? What are we doing trying to save 20 to 25 million on House of the Dragon when House of the Dragon was probably our most legitimate thing that we put out the last year or two?
That's why.
Right?
Why'd they do it? They did this the same questions you asked with the End of Thrones too. Those episodes getting cut down and all the talks about production costs getting high and that being like, movie level production costs, especially when the dragons brought it. It's like, yeah, this is what you brought up. Like this is what you built up to. You can't scoff at the idea of it. So I'm completely with you here. Like, what are you cutting the resources here when you are prestige TV this summer? Like, this was the show of the summer. Has held it in the zeitgeist for the whole time. The Bear was too scared to come out every week because of House of the Dragon. They're like, we're going to come out all at once in July because we know House of the Dragon is going to take over. So, yeah, it's ridiculous that you went to this lengths to kind of cut it short. I'm with you there, man.
Anybody at the bottom got any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it is telling this coming out today. I wasn't really thinking of this while watching, but obviously it makes a little more sense that the episode went the way that it did. But yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with you guys. It seems like something that probably would have paid off if you just went ahead and made the show like you intended to. And now here we are kind of wanting more and, have to wait presumably a couple of years for this season 3 and this huge battle that we were kind of strung along for 8 episodes for. I mean, almost 9 episodes, given how long last night's episode was. But yeah, just disappointing. This Reddit post, made a little more sense of it, but still disappointing at the end of the day if this is actually the reasoning.
All I know is from all the news about AEW's possible contract renewal is that WBD is supposedly operating at very heavy losses, and they're looking to cut corners any way they can, and they'll only invest in something if they can get a return on investment. That's why they put out a very heavy bid for the NBA rights, trying to match them, and that's probably still up in the air, probably going to go into the core system. I don't know what Jake has heard further about that in particular, but I think if they're looking to cut corners wherever they can, they figured they can make just as much money on 8 episodes as 10 episodes as House of the Dragon. And you put that off for 2 years. You put off a big dragon-infused battle for 2 years and put it off to season 3. Then I guess they feel that it gives them time to recoup their losses and regroup and rebudget everything, is what I'm possibly
one of the things, the note I'll add about the NBA deal is that the thought is the reason that they're suing is they know they're not going to win it, that the NBA is going to go with Amazon, but they'll be able to get a nice little settlement package from the NBA and get a little cut of that somehow. So maybe that's the influx of cash that you're referring to get this season the way it's supposed to be. Season 3 is that not little amount. It's going to be a big amount of money, but that money that they come through, whatever the lawsuit ends up being with the NBA.
If they make season 3, guys, 12 episodes to make up for the 8 episodes of season 2, would that satiate you? Would that make
I mean, they already have my forgiveness as soon as episode 1 comes out.
Yeah, no, listen,
Regardless of how long next season is.
It's gonna be Michael Scott gif. I'm ready to be heard again the second it's coming out. But you guys said it yourselves. It's like the hype going in was insane. It was appointment TV, especially even though I yelled the first thing I ranted about was changing blood and cheese. I mean, that was fucking electric that first week talking about that.
Again, what was it about changing blood and cheese that you didn't particularly care for?
It's just like, why did you change the thing about it? So the blood and cheese, she asks, which kid do you want to lose? And she chooses one, and they kill the other one, and then they go to the other one. Hey, your mom wanted you dead.
Oh yeah,
and then left. So like a lot more brutal than what they did. I don't know why they didn't choose her, whatever. But again, I digress.
Well, we have to keep in mind that just like the original Game of Thrones series, there's a lot that is different from the books. I mean, we didn't have Catelyn Stark rising from the dead and becoming a zombie in the original series, right?
Probably too much on the budget now. Why we didn't get Lady Stoneheart that I'm seeing it. But yeah, my only takeaway from this is that it clearly wasn't done correctly, and that the people with their finger on the over the button or the dial, they just don't have an idea of what the actual pulse is. They think that they can put out 8 or 10 and they'll still make the same profit, exactly like you said, Partham. But this felt completely disconnected. I couldn't believe when I felt that music rising and realizing that like that was the last scene of the season as it was happening. I literally was in shock and disbelief. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, there is. I did catch myself like checking the minutes left in the episode, and I was like, well, surely they can,
let's
5
check my
minutes
watch.
left. They can fit in something, or someone important can get killed like crazily in these last 5 minutes, right? And then, kind of just withering away, watching the minutes wither away. I was like, well, this is how it's ending, huh?
Yeah, tough. But with that said, again, like we said, we'll be signing up for more Pain Come Tears. What do you got?
An idea of like medieval history, like how long does it take to marshal your armies, and especially when there's a divide in the kingdom and you're trying to see who's going to side with who, how much longer that process takes. If there's a realism in this whole season being about marshaling your armies to prepare for war, when you're pretty much saying war has been declared at the end of season 1. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
I'll give you that, but I think that I could easily point out about 3 to 5 storylines that are basically exactly where they were in season 2, episode 1 at the end of the season. And then that's my issue. Again, I have no problem with you telling me this army is going to take this long to get to this spot. But it was really just kind of like random stuff, like Jason Lannister's in the Western lands.
The Lannister, the whole Lannister part of this episode was the most out of touch for a finale. That's what made it most feel like it was an episode 8 and not a.
Why do we have 3 scenes with Jason Lannister and the Triarchy who have not been mentioned all season? By the way, this isn't like Hot D season 1 where they're getting mentioned every episode. Corlys Velaryon was hitting his KPIs on saying the Triarchy every episode. But yeah, it just felt like, again, you put that in, you put just some of the other storylines. It did not feel like a finale. It felt like a great episode 8 of a 10 episode season for sure. Like you're telling me if there was a episode coming next week, you wouldn't be going nuts. Of course, we'd all be going nuts. Did you see them all getting ready for battle? Did you see the fact that Otto Hightower is someone's prisoner? This is awesome. But no, there's nothing coming for 2 years, and that's what makes it not awesome. That's the dynamic.
Wait. They did mention the Triarchy in the last episode or 2 because that's even Thailand in order to secure the Triarchy's alliance, right?
They literally mentioned them last episode for the first time all season to be like, hey, we need to go. And all of them were aghast at Aemon. Like, you would go negotiate with the free cities? And he's like, yeah, I'm desperate, bro. All right. With that said, though, the reaction, the fallout, everything. What did we like from last night's episode? I like that Alan didn't go with the prototypical. I'm gonna just go along with everything. I like that he was like, "Fuck that, dude! Like, I'm staying with my shit."
Alan had a moment.
Yeah,
that was some of the best acting last night. I think was that whole scene.
You could tell that he was holding back a lot this season, and he just let it all out at Corlys. basically the only reason you're treating us this way is because you have no heirs left, and now you acknowledge our existence. You can see where he's kind of bitter about that. I mean, this is what Corliss should have been doing all along. Maybe not acknowledging them as his sons, but, just looking after them, taking care of them, and giving them a little fatherly advice and positioning them well. It didn't have to take Alan, saving Corliss's life and everybody else losing their lives for him to, finally, talk to him in such a manner.
Exactly. Or Alan feeling secure enough in his position within like the whatever, the armada and everything, where he's like, you know what's he gonna do? Like, he can't afford to lose me, so let me get this shit off. And he can't fire me. Like, what's he gonna do without me at this point? Like, feeling that kind of support and strength from his position too, which is a lot of this episode was about make desperate moves on your position, whether it's from strength or weakness. The Alan part was the scene that I think I mentioned a couple episodes ago that we reviewed. Because I wasn't on our last review, so the 2 weeks ago then, that we were getting this coming into this season at some point. And you want to talk about well acted. That Alicent and Rhaenyra scene was one of the best acted scenes of Game of Thrones, like, that I've seen on this whole show. And that was the one thing in this episode that was worthy of a finale, was that 10 minutes of television right there. And it wasn't a battle, wasn't anything else, but I think it had just as much meaning as anything else. And I wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on how that kind of all played out, because you want to talk about someone who was desperate. That was Alicent Hightower in that moment. That's for sure.
Let me talk to you. Call me that.
Yeah.
No, here's my deal, and I'll keep it very short and succinct. I was okay with that scene. I thought it was okay, and I liked it last night. I would love that scene if we didn't sneak Rhaenyra into King's Landing for no reason and do that stuff. I think that scene would carry a lot more desperation.
I feel the same way.
When she showed up, I honestly thought it was like, oh, like the threequel, like, it was that's how I felt when I saw her, honestly. And I get they acted their asses off in that scene, and the shit they were talking about, insane. But we just absolutely should have skipped that other bullshit. And again, that's a Lego piece that if it shifts out, you can move everything up. All of a sudden, you got an extra 10 to 15 minutes in the finale.
I think they needed that first secret meetup scene in order to establish the trust in this scene. So I think
that's fair.
It was a very small. It was at the end of that episode. It wasn't as long as this one, but they needed to establish that, hey, despite all the ugly shit that's gone down, neither one of us really meant for it to happen. So they needed that trust from each other. If that scene hadn't happened, then I think there would have been a lot more contempt, at least on Rhaenyra's part, and distrust on her part, with Alicent just showing up out of nowhere after all that's happened this season.
Yeah,
I mean, I'll let you go.
I had a little bit of mixed reviews, but I share some sentiment with both of you guys on that one. I thought, Jake, I'm in agreement with you. Like, I think the acting was great in that scene. I loved coming back to the son for his son, and Alicent kind of just almost giving like the head nod, like, yeah, if that's what we need to do at this point, then so be it. So I thought there was good points in it, but when they do show Alicent and Rhaenyra kind of being surprised, like, I thought the audience was probably less surprised than Rhaenyra was portrayed to be in that scene. It was kind of like, oh, all right, yeah, Alicent's here to kind of say her piece. And I don't know. I like the scene. It was, I kind of see where Maniac's coming from, though.
Yeah, after all last season where we basically were just roasting Alicent for being so hypocritical, and then at the beginning of this season, of course, hooking up with Kristen Cole and all that, and it's like, this is what you criticized Rhaenyra for last season in the first place, and now she's basically holding the mirror up to herself and saying, you know what? Yeah, I have been kind of a B word this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, with the reaction I have at the end, I was actually so happy at the start of the episode because we get Aemond burning the the sharp rocks or whatever. We get the scene with Gwaine and Cole that we saw in the preview. So we were getting all these preview scenes. I thought, oh my God, there must be all this good stuff that we have to see in the last 45 minutes. What'd you think of the Gwaine Kristen Cole scene? That was an interesting dynamic, from having him at sword points, kind of being like, damn, bro, like, I feel for you.
I just liked it from the fact that Cole's speech was like the best scene, one of the best scenes from Cole, just like the humanizing himself and being like, listen, like what is that? Does any of this matter? Like this conversation doesn't matter. Like the dragons could come burn us alive right now. We've seen what it is. And just like that perspective that he has, like he doesn't care anymore. Like he's out there, he's doing stuff like for whatever honor he kind of believes in. I don't know what he really believes in. It seems like he's wanted to believe in the Kingsguard, but then kind of saw what it really was and who the guys really were. Because listen, he was exactly right. Like, okay, you're gonna come after me like I'm the only person in this Kingsguard that's like hooking up with people. Like half of them probably aren't down in with the small folk, you know, running around rampant like our king, like our Prince Regent is and our king is and everything else. Like everybody holds each other to these high standards in Westeros when they all know like on the behind like everybody else is doing this stuff. So I thought it was Cole just being like real, like for the first time, where he's not trying to actively scheme up, he's just like telling it how it is. And I don't think Gwaine was expecting that at all.
Yeah, I think Cole's kind of been different ever since Rook's Rest, and I think they did a pretty good job of portraying that in the show. I like the scene, obviously. Maniac, I think you called it, right, when we were talking about the preview last week, that's what the sword to the face was going to be about, that it was going to be about, you know, hey, man, why are you sleeping with my sister? Like, what's going on here? And so, you know, it had the lighthearted moment of that, and then obviously Cole gets, like, super serious, saying, you know, she saved his life a couple of times, once from himself. And, yeah, Jake, I loved the whole hype-up speech, too. I thought it was kind of weird that like this is how we leave Cole in this season because of, you know, if you guys remember us talking about him and then even just social media after the first couple episodes, it's like, man, I fucking hate this guy. Like he's the worst. Cole sucks. You know, over and over again, we're getting this. We're talking about it on this show as well. And it seemed weird to end the season with, you know, that being the last of Cole. Obviously, it seemed weird to end the season the way it did in general. I'm sure Cole will have some crazy thing that happens to him in season 3, but little weird where we left off with Sir Kristen Cole.
Yeah,
it's almost like just real quick. It's almost like they reacted to the Kristen Cole stuff in like real time. Like it was like a month and a half ago. They're like, he has to deactivate all of his socials or whatever. So it's almost like they knew that. And they're like, all right, have him get knocked out during a dragon battle and then make him like, you know, an apathetic cuck. And then they're like, all right, that's the perfect way to get him out of there. What do you got, Parthy?
Just like Allison, I mean, Cole basically started the season. We were just calling him and all this shit. And he ends the season just taking a look in the mirror and saying, you know what? I haven't really been as honorable as I'd like to be. And maybe in the end, it doesn't matter because we're all going to be Ash. I mean, Kristen Cole, by far, even more than Aegon or Aemond, people have just been disgusted at his hypocrisy, his actions, his words. And here he is just, you know, being so introspective and about almost being I'm not sure how to say it. He very like Jake said, very humanizing, and it's surprising in that regard.
I mean, a war march / camp has to be like so dirty and so boring. Could you imagine if you're just like literally like cleaning your sword and then all of a sudden you see like Gwaine Hightower screaming at the head of the Kingsguard that he's fucking the queen?
Did
like,
you notice everybody in the back staring?
Oh,
like,
dude,
at the whole
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that's like the best entertainment they've had in their entire life,
right,
happening right in front of their face. Like, and it's like in the most dire moments. So I'm like, yeah, I'd be turning the volume up on that shit for sure.
Parth, I have a question
yeah.
for you. Was that a conversation that happened in the books? Because I know that one thing I wanted to mention about Alicent Rhaenyra was that apparently that wasn't anything that happened. That was added on for the television program. Is that true?
Yeah, I think the Alicent Cole thing was probably added on. If it was a thing with Alicent and Cole in the books, I don't think that conversation is something that would have been fleshed out as much. I mean, that's something that would have been private between them anyway. It wouldn't have been officially recorded by any of the maesters, you know.
And that's
recording.
That's what somebody said too. History wouldn't have known, and then they make that point in the little conversation too, where Rhaenyra's like, "History won't remember you, Alicent,"
right?
And she's like,
"Well, history won't remember you fondly."
Fondly, yes, exactly.
I'm fine with that. I just gotta be peace with myself.
Yeah,
so that sort of explains, even though there's a lot already different between the books and the series, that would, you know, sort of explain the depiction of her in the history retelling of this whole Dance of the Dragons.
Yeah, and that's why like this is one of the better ones because Fire and Blood is what told by 3 people, like what a Meister, a Grand Meister, one of the dwarves, and then somebody else or whatever.
Yeah, there was supposed to be like a dwarf court gesture in Rhaenyra's court that they didn't write into the show. That was recording a lot of this for that book, supposedly.
Yes. And then obviously we have Cole and his army out because they're marching to protect King's Landing, where we check in with Aemond and Helena. By the way, when Helena started talking, you had to admit that dial was turned out. Give me all the spoilers, give me all the future stuff. But what'd you think of this interaction here? The crazy thing is that as vile and kind of like crazy as what Aemond is saying, it's all accurate. Like he was basically like, we can't think about protecting like the throne. Like we have to think about protecting our lives and like our well-being and all that stuff. Like I thought he really was spitting truth, even though he wasn't showing much love for Helena. Now people are kind of missed. Speaking of book and show things, people are saying Helena like fucking loves her dragon in the books. Is that true, Parthy?
I'm not sure. I haven't delved that deep into it.
They're
I'm
just
sure
saying that
even, you can still love your dragon and not be so fond of being a rider, especially when most of the time riding implies you're well, maybe not. Well, maybe during peacetime, of course, you're just riding around to either joyride or get somewhere quickly. But in times of war, obviously, riding around a dragon obviously means you're going to be going to a barbecue.
True. What do you guys think of the King's Landing scene between the Prince Regent and the Queen?
Man, as you said, I turned up my volume as loud as I could once Helena started talking and just dropping all the knowledge that she had on there, especially because the transition into it was Helena, it seemed, talking to Daemon, which made me think, what kind of mystical powers does she really have? Like, how strong is this girl really?
Yeah, like what she seeing, what Daemon was seeing in that moment.
Was she like kind of helping out with this the whole time? Like how deep is it with Helena? But I guess we can get into that when it comes around the next time. But yeah, the line that got me was Aegon will be king again, and I'm just like, oh shit. Well, if Helena's saying this, and Aegon's, we know that there's going to be some sort of attempt towards King's Landing later on in this show after that, and we see Aegon shuffling out. He's all right now, and how long, like, this is going back to how long these things have been and how long these things takes, like getting the army ready and everything, what we're supposed to expect with this. How long has it been since Aegon really got burnt? Because he's like, he's not doing great, but now he's talking, he's got some fire, he's got his old sass back when he's talking with Larys in this episode, and he's up and moving. Like, I want to know how far along into recovery he is. But yeah, the Helena thing.
If I had to guess, let's all just jump in real quick and guess how long it's been since Rook's Rest. I'm going to say 3 months, because I think we saw an intricate period where he went from like terrible to like now he just looks like deformed. He's starting to move around a little bit, maybe not like as hobbled. I think 3.5 months feels right.
Yeah, I was going to say like 6 even. But
could be
far.
for sure.
Yeah,
no, you're right. That's where I had it.
It's probably somewhere between your guys' guesses, but it's also weird to like think about that at the same time as you're thinking about like what's been going on with Daemon. Because if it was 6 months that Daemon's at Harrenhal, you're like, all right, they should be even more upset with him than they are. So that's where the timelines get tricky for me. That scene with Helena and Aemond, like, the best part of it for me was when he basically told Helena that she was speaking and everything she was saying was treason. And she was just like, well, you're going to die anyway, so it doesn't matter. Like, I just loved how, like, brutally honest she was. And, like, she knows what she sees in her head. And, she doesn't really have to answer to anyone else if she doesn't want to.
Yeah, all this time, the Helena, prophecies and predictions have really just been, secondhand. She's just been talking in riddles and maybe not even understanding what she's saying. And now she's basically saying it to Aemon's face. Everything that she's seen is going to happen, and really just giving it right back to him. I really liked Helena in this whole episode.
Oh, loved her.
Looking a lot stronger than she ever has before. She's been mostly just very quiet and reserved, and understandably so in this season after, my God, losing one of her children, for crying out loud. But she had a lot more strength than I think was depicted in the books and that we've seen her so far in this whole series.
This conversation was the end of the Matrix, not when it got all crazy and he was fighting like 80 Smiths, but when he turns into like the one at the end and he's like just fighting Smith with like the one arm on his side, like as he's throwing the punches, that was Helena talking to Eamon. I mean, this quote is ridiculous. Because Eamon's just like, right, like anything has been power about him. Let me get power, and like now I can like take it on the people who take it out on me. Just goes, I could have you killed. It wouldn't change anything. Like just such a great statement. Like absolutely. It's my favorite phrase. It's like punching Jello. It's just like nothing can happen like when you do it. So it was really good. And yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, it's also one of those literary things where like the answer's right under your nose, right? If Eamon could literally understand the power that Helena does possess, he could potentially use it to his benefit, could potentially wield it in some form, for sure. But the King's Landing, and then just to touch on, this is a great Reddit comment. My boy Laris out here trying to convince Aegon to join him on an Ibiza holiday while the company they started together goes under.
Yeah,
exactly true. Exactly true. I didn't see, by the way, in the carriage, is he like stuffed and hidden in something too, like on top of everything?
Or is he just poke over him? He's probably trying to conceal the white hair and everything like that.
Yeah, that's crazy. But obviously gonna go wait it out while everything gets crazy. Can't blame him for that, especially Aegon the Golden Parachute. There. But then besides that, I mean, we can get into the triarchy. I'm kind of good talking triarchy. Like, seems like they're gonna either be a third party coming in or they're gonna be on Team Green next season for what they're being paid to do. But yeah, again, always a dangerous situation when you're trusting a third party to come in and secure, your country. Once they secure the country, what are they going to do? Obviously. But then we got back to Harrenhal, where everything kind of ends, everything kind of climaxes for this episode before the armies and everything march out. We got Rhaenyra showing up with Adam, and ultimately everything is like, by the way, Simon Strong, hysterical. Simon Strong was in a season. This is like, when your team has a down under 500 season or whatever, because you're a little disappointed at the end or whatever. But you look back, you're like, oh, that guy really did well. If everyone was like him, or them or whatever, would have gone better. That was Simon Strong. This man got the inkling that there could be some treason afoot and immediately wrote to his queen about what was taking place, regardless of what was there, everything like that. It was hysterical. So well done. And then did anyone see him slow motion clapping in the background?
Yes, I was gonna mention
he had the shock face too. There's
yes. Like he was right. So
it was. So, I haven't seen The Boys yet, but what was that scene with the what's his name?
Homelander.
He's like, okay, all right.
Yeah,
he lasers the guy and then he gets cheered. Yep, and he's like, all right. Yeah,
let's go.
Yes, very much the same reaction from Simon Strong. And then we do have Broom, by the way. I didn't notice this in the scene. Apparently, Broom kind of sulks off while everyone's going nuts for Rhaenyra. So I hope he's not
terrified. He doesn't he doesn't know what's coming for him.
Yeah, that's true. When you propose treason and it doesn't get accepted, you should probably bail.
He bend the knee with everybody else. He was
he skirted off.
He did. He bent the knee.
He bent the knee?
He bent the knee in the moment. But then when everyone got up and was like, my queen or whatever, like going nuts, like he kind of like skirted off. Like he didn't want to be in the immediate thing. But yeah, again, that was the thing that sucked. I was just expecting one more thing to happen. I wasn't expecting it to be left on a cliffhanger. Sorry. I mean, because that's the cliffhanger of cliffhanger. How many parties did we see getting ready for battle? What, 6 to 8?
6, I think. Yeah.
The Lannister army, the Starks are finally crossing the Trident.
Yeah. We were supposed to see Cregan on the bridge at the Twins.
Okay,
apparently.
so I thought I missed something. Yeah.
No, we were supposed to see Cregan, and his digital part got cut out for some reason. I don't know why. Again, very like, as much as I love it and you love the content, like you see these decisions gets made, you're like, what the hell, It's
one of the cooler cliffhangers of this episode for next season is Rhaena too, who finally came across the rogue dragon, and we don't really know what happens, but she's almost dying out there.
That was the most ridiculous part of this episode. It was just cutting back to scenes of Rhaena just running through the Val, and we're like, all right, we'll see her in a couple minutes. She's still
I agree.
running.
That could have been done in
there was some shit. I'm telling you.
Aggressively drinking out of the stream.
Obviously trying to build up, her finally coming upon the dragon, getting clues and then getting a glimpse at the dragon from a distance. And I guess it wouldn't have been, I guess, as dramatic, but they could have cut it down for the amount of episodes that got cut in this season.
Yeah.
True.
I will ask you, let's fight for our queen. It's not quite, the King in the North episode with Jon Snow and everybody's raising their swords, but did we feel a little anything there?
So I almost mentioned this when Maniac brought it up at the beginning. I did feel something. I thought it was great, but I mean, I just can only imagine how much better that scene would have been if we got a battle in that same episode, or at least the start of a battle, or even just the start of a march. I thought the hype up was great. I enjoyed it, but I do think, obviously, much with the rest of this episode, it could have been done better.
The only reason I'm going to put it at 3 out of King in the North scale for me. The reason being King in the North, I mean, both of those were like the virtue was earned, and in both of those, they got monologues leading up to it where they were talking about how great they were, all that they had accomplished, everything like that, and that's why you're the King in the North. This felt just kind of like Damon was like, this is our girl, like, yeah. Like, and don't get me wrong, there has been a little nerve, and she has been worried about all episodes, so it did have a little effect, but yeah, it felt a little flat, even though it was a good moment for me. What about you, Micah?
I was I was hyped up to see it, but again, like we've already kind of been there with Rhaenyra, right? Like I think we've all been pretty much aligned with Team Black and everything else. So it wasn't like maybe if you like changed your mind during this episode or this season for whatever reason on what side you thought was more in the right here, which I don't think there was any question by the end of it anyways. So it was fine, but yeah, I don't know if it reaches Jon Snow levels, but that's hard levels to get to that if we're talking about a guy.
Speaking of things that have to do with the prince that was promised, what do we think about Damon's visions of everything that was to come? And him basically seeing the Song of Ice and Fire himself, rather than having been told it, by his brother or wherever that story is passed down through the line. Rhaenyra just got told that story, but Damon basically saw it for himself. And what did you think of all the little cutscenes that we got to see?
Yeah, so I thought that part was really cool, and it that's what sucks about this episode 8 shit and how there should have been more is because I find myself like keep talking poorly about the episode. There was a lot of good things here, and I thought the vision being one of them. Like the fact that we got a White Walker last night in Damon's vision. We saw Daenerys Targaryen with the 3 baby dragons in the vision, which I thought was a cool part of that. So I thought it was important to the episode, the season. I thought it was one of the better parts of the episode last night. I really liked the vision, and I still was kind of unsure where Daemon was going to go, even when he came out of the vision, as far as bending the knee to Rhaenyra or not. And so, yeah, I thought it did a lot of good in the episode last night.
I liked it a lot for basically all the same reasons that Dunny said, and it was just a nice, like, Damon having the moment of clarity, but also knowing, like, a nice touch towards the fans being like, whatever is about to happen had to happen to lead to everything that you like loved before about this, and however it plays out, like, directly played into that. And I thought that was a nice reminder to the interconnectedness of this universe and where the hope is for the Targaryen family at this point, because we I don't know if we saw like how much of that vision and how much Daemon knows about the future or anything, or if he's going to see more stuff or anything else. But obviously we know it doesn't go great for the Targaryens until that, like, it takes a big downturn in the next couple hundred years. So I wonder if the extent of what he knows, and if he knows, like, okay, we're going to go through some pain, some suffering and everything else, but if I make this decision right now, it will all be worth it, in the end when winter comes and everything else. So it was a nice touch to add in there, I think.
I'm with that. I don't hate the vision. It's just, if I was Hot D, I would try to be sticking to like the story that I'm telling and everything. I think that people devalue it because of how Thrones ended. Like, I get what you're saying. It all leads up to that, and I think it's a good vibe for that. And it was cool to see most of the vision, so I'll give it credit for that. And then just to put a wrap on it, speaking of acting right, how about Ulf?
Bro, such a clown.
I mean, you knew some of these guys weren't exactly going to be the most curt or courteous or tactful, but I guess Ulf should have been the one we suspected that would have incited the anger of Prince Jacaerys.
I was like weirdly getting a little bit of secondhand embarrassment in this scene.
Yeah.
I was like, bro, shut up. Like, you're at the table with them, man. Why are you talking like that?
I can't remember what the line was that Rhaenyra gave to him. Something about being a knight, though. Like a knight.
She's like, yeah, a knight doesn't put her feet on or conducts himself with like, in front of the group. Better hurry up and make me a knight.
Better hurry up
that
and
was
knight me.
fucking hysterical. Low-key, that was fucking hysterical. Like, I don't
what's
care.
she gonna do? But what is she gonna do to him? He's got the dragon. Like you got nothing. He's got immunity. He's like,
It was like
whatever.
Michael Scott. It was like if Michael Scott kind of got kind of a dragon, like just super excited to be there, all that stuff. But yeah, dude, that was pretty fucking
he wasn't
fun.
he was very rude, and he didn't read the room, of course, and he's not used to doing that. He just hangs out in bars all day. But the one line about you guys should all get a sense of humor, I mean, he wasn't wrong about that. It's everything's so dreadful, and with this war is looming over their heads and weighing on their shoulders, and it's like nobody ever cracks a joke around here once in a while. Maybe Ulf will lighten the room up, but they gotta straighten him out too.
Who was Tyrion Lannister's champion?
Bronn?
No, you mean in the trial by combat? Oberyn
Yes.
Martell?
Yeah, he kind of reminded me of him a little bit in that scene, just the sarcastic.
Oberyn was a lot smoother, though.
Yeah, and he
well.
could hold his own as far as battles went too, which we don't know about.
Yeah, and Oberyn, that's a great point though, because Oberyn was so used to all those high lords and everything, he knew exactly how to navigate them and everything. Whereas you could tell Ulf just kind of has doesn't think it's any different than being at the fucking pub.
Yeah,
bring me more of those birds.
A couple more birds. With that said, anything else from last night's episode before we put a bow on it? Okay.
I was surprised Aegon went with
the Aegon Larys tag team is very
Larys,
very
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, it's
I was a
going
little
to be
surprised that he ended up going.
Rhaenyra handles that when she realizes Aegon slipped out, and without Allison's knowledge, and if she's going to believe Allison when she says, "I had nothing to do with that."
Exactly.
Right. My brain went there as well.
Oh, the one other thing that we got at the very end, our old friend Otto Hightower. You mentioned this, of course, before, that he's hanging out in some prison cell. We have no idea. We just got a glimpse of him and not a hint as to who actually captured him. We didn't even know he was captured by anybody at this point. So that's a hell of a tease.
Yeah, who the hell's got Otto?
That was a good
And
question.
was that not supposed to be implied that was at Dragonstone? Like, was that a stop after?
Otto, I mean,
They were kind of jumping. They were kind of jumping all around. It was tough to tell.
Yeah, it's a good point though.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, it goes without saying. Lots to look forward to for the first couple episodes of next season for sure. Definitely a little sour taste in most of the fans' mouth right now for sure. Here on What's Trending Watching. Real quick before we kind of end things, who saw Deadpool Wolverine?
I did.
I have yet to see it. I was trying to make time over the weekend and just haven't gotten around to it.
All good. Great movie. I say this, and this kind of sounds stupid to a lot of people, but it sounds great to me. It reminds me of the Entourage movie. If you're going for the Entourage movie, you're going to like it. If you're going for Deadpool Wolverine, you're going to like it. If you're expecting it to be some, anything else, you're an idiot. But if you're going for Deadpool Wolverine, it's a 10 out of 10.
Well said. I think that's perfect.
First time for everything. Folks, make sure you're following on all the platforms. Make sure you're following the guys, Lord Parthy the Wise, Lord Dunny the Brave, Lord Mike of the War, myself as well, the host that was promised here on What's Training Watching. We got lots more. This train ain't stopping. And with that said, regardless of what side you choose in this war, Team Black, Team Green, we wish you good fortunes in the wars and battles to come. Good night now.